Coming up on UGTV, Standing Committee Meetings of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. We begin with a meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee. This will be followed by the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee.
Go ahead and get started here in just a minute. It'll be just another minute or two before we get started, and we're happy to see everybody. Before I officially call the meeting to order, I thought I would just tell you it's a fairly full room, and I don't know if everyone that wants a seat has one or not. If you do not have a seat in this room, we have set chairs up in the lobby for overflow because we do have several agenda items tonight that are drawing out the public's interest. So if you don't have a seat and you want one, you certainly can watch in the lobby, and we will make sure that you are aware in the lobby of City Hall when the agenda item that you're interested in comes forward. We have multiple items on the agenda tonight to take care of, and we will start here in about 1 to 2 minutes, so we also appreciate your patience. Thanks. Okay, folks, we're ready to start, and I'm going to call this meeting of Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order. And we do welcome everyone to our meeting. Public comment is welcome, and if you wish to speak on an agenda item on this standing committee agenda, you may do that when the item is up for discussion. At that time, you'll have up to 3 minutes to state your comments. And at that time, we would ask that you come forward to the podium and the microphone, and you'll be recognized to speak. And we would ask that for our recording purposes, you do speak directly into that microphone. Could we have roll call, please?
Roll call. Groneman.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Markley. Here. Kane. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Bynum.
Here. The order of business that's first on our agenda tonight is the minutes from March 18.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. There are 6 items on this committee agenda tonight. The first item is a presentation regarding the Rosedale substation, and we have representatives from the Board of Public Utilities, and we have Mr. Mark Russell with the BPU up front. And Mr. Russell, I'll recognize you, and then if you'll bring us your comments and remarks on the item, please.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend 10 to 15 minutes with you to update you on the Rosedale Reliability Plan. Again, as was mentioned, my name is Mark Russell. I'm the project manager for the Rosedale Reliability Plan. I've been on the project since August of 2018, and so I'll just begin. So why the Rosedale Reliability Plan? And if you don't know, the BPU is spending enormous amounts of money to improve reliability in the Rosedale area. Right now with the Fisher sub, we look at it as a single point of failure, having 2 transmission lines come out of the Fisher sub, not to mention on 1 switchgear. The Rosedale Reliability Plan will now separate those 2 lines into that 1 line into 2 161 kV lines. That's an upgrade from a 69 kV line, and then multiple switchgear. So we've now increased that reliability in the Rosedale area, which is critical for the KU Med Center and then all the local businesses that are there. In addition, we'll eventually eliminate the Fisher substation, which is 1960s technology, and bring it up to 2020 technology. That will support enormous growth for the Rosedale area. We have that capability. We will bring that capability at the end of 2019, which will bring businesses in, be able to thrive and support it for many, many years to come. The other one is we'll look at area improvements within there. We'll eliminate the aging distribution. So as we build out that new Rosedale sub, all of our distribution and our distribution feeders will also come back up into 2020 technology. I mentioned the Fisher Park. Once we're done with the Fisher Park, we will take down the Fisher Park and demo that in 2020, 2021, currently on the schedule. And so that will be given back to the unified government and for future park expansion. And that green space, that critical green space in that area will be given back. Not to mention along the sidewalk right there on South Minnie, one of the things that the BPU is doing is we're connecting South Minnie to South Iowa. If you've ever been down that South Minnie street, it's a pretty steep kind of turn switchback type of street, very narrow. We'll be doing a sidewalk along there as part of that area improvement. And then on the additional side, and one of the other benefits with all the walking trails that are back there, the BPU has purchased land on the other side of South Minnie. That's to connect those walking trails, because where the current, and I'll show you pictures here, where the current Rosedale sub is going, there were walking trails up there. So the plan is to give that back to the unified government, look at those walking trails and connect those walking trails. So we're looking at this as a huge win, not only for the city, but for the BPU customers. So here's the product description. Again, we're gonna convert substation to substation. So these 2 lines go from the current Rosedale sub to the Barber sub. So we'll upgrade that barber sub on site. We'll build out a greenfield substation, which we're currently in active construction now. We'll construct the two new 161 kV lines. Those constructions will start in the August timeframe and end in the December timeframe. Then we will convert 15K feeders to the new Rosedale sub in 2020, and that's that critical distribution that I just talked about, and then retire the Fisher sub in 2021. So getting into the Rosedale sub, and this is the first thing that we looked at. And if you look over here, right here is about Fisher Park kind of covered up, and then here in this area will be the KU Medical Center. Down right over along here is Southwest Boulevard. You can't see it in the picture. The Board of Public Utilities purchased this land on this hilltop. Right now, we are in active construction to build out this model right here and this substation. We have removed all the trees within that land. We now have a current pad on that land, and we have a contractor that is now currently putting foundations in for things like transformers, control buildings and switch gear buildings, et cetera. So that is in active construction. So when we looked at that active construction, that was the top of the hill. About August when I took over of 2018. South Minnie, these are the homes right here along South Minnie. You'll see right there, part of South Minnie. In about October of 2018, when we cleared off the trees, you'll see that the remainder of the hill was there. We actually removed 70,000 cubic yards of dirt to get the surface down below the tree line. And that's critical because here, when we were done in December of 2018, January of 2019, you'll see that the current substation is all below that tree line. And we kept the entire tree line around there to prevent line of sight into the sub, to prevent kind of that eyesore that people naturally associate with substations. Like right now, the current Fisher sub is right next to a park. It's a chain link fence. That's not the case here. This one is below the tree line. We'll have a decorative stone cast fence around it, which will make it look nice for the local community. So we're currently on track, and this is what project managers do all the time. They keep schedules on track or they get fired. We've ordered all of our long lead time bill of materials. We have those currently arriving. Things like transformers arriving next week. Things like switchgear and control enclosures, all on time. We started active construction on the Rosedale line, and we will continue. On the Rosedale sub, we will continue that active construction all the way until October and November as it starts to get built out. We are also currently doing vegetation clearing to bring in those two transmission lines into the substation. Besides the sub, we also have two transmission lines going from a 69 kV to a 161 kV transmission line. The slide on the left, shows the current route going outside of the Fisher substation, right down here at the bottom where the red laser pointer is. The red box is the current new rebuild of the Rosedale substation. So eventually we're going to take it off of the Fisher substation and put two T lines onto the Rosedale substation. Right now, we have a single point of failure going all the way to this point. So if a semi-tractor trailer was to hit a truck, if a line was to go down or a pole was to go down, that entire area, it causes enormous stress on the system. So part of that reliability is to take a look at dividing out those two lines. So here's the same picture with the Rosedale sub, and now we've gotten rid of that single point of failure. One of these T lines can support the local area. So therefore, we've made it more reliable. Now, the critical thing is, and I know you're going to vote on it later, but we have actively been pursuing easements to get these lines. We've worked with our customers, we've worked with landowners to be fair and equitable within those. We've actually accomplished most of the easements that we need to build this line out. So we feel very confident. It's been a long process working with a local real estate firm and a law firm to get those easements, and it's been a pretty smooth transition. So on the T-line and procurement and construction timeline, we currently have steel that is currently in manufacturing that is going to be delivered in the July, August, and September timeframe. It's an enormous amount. It's 68 poles, but it comes on hundreds of trucks. So that will be sequenced in. So we have all of our steel, all of our conductor, everything else to erect these two lines. We will start with the Barber line first in the July timeframe. And normally you don't see transmission line construction because you don't take transmission lines out during the summer because of the heat of the summer. Well, the first line that we're building is called a greenfield build. So therefore we don't have to take any outages. So we can actually start that construction in the July timeframe. We'll finish out that Barber line. We will energize that line, and then we'll move over and then do the Armourdale line. The goal is to have both of those transmission lines done by the 15 December 2019 timeframe. So no project is without concerns, and we've had our challenges, we've had our concerns, but we have a fully competent team that handles those concerns, that is proactive on those concerns. But I'd like to talk about three landowners that we had while building out the substation. Again, the substation is going in this area. We had three landowners that considered that they were impacted by that sub. And to be perfectly honest, when you have that type of construction going on right in your backyard and you have that type of infrastructure going up, there is some effect to people's daily lives and just what they see every day, looking out their window or going to work. So we have been dealing with those landowners, and I'd like to just briefly touch on each one real quick. The first one is at 38 South Minnie. This landowner, when we got our conditional use permit through the unified government, where this sidewalk ends, that's actually a street, a plotted street, 38th Street, which was supposed to go up to the next street, and I can't remember the name, I apologize. But anyways, the unified government asked us to take that street and use it as part of the entrance into our substation, and that's the way we planned it. However, when you live right here, and you now find out that a street is going in right there, that's an impact to you. So we've worked hand in hand with this landowner and Mr. Rob Richardson. We've been in constant contact with Rob, and one of the things that we've done is we've asked, first of all, a lot of this is road right away, so the street won't actually go in right there. We all know that. One of the things we'll work on with them is screening for them. We will also, if there's any additional sidewalk, it will go on the other side of the street and not right here, right along the side of their house. So that is one way to work with this landowner. But they did have some concerns with that street going in. That was always going to be the entrance to the sub, but now it's more of a plotted street. It will look like a street, but we will actually dead end and tee this street off just in the back of their house. The second landowner is up on Lloyd Street, and that's where that's where 38th Street eventually would connect up to Lloyd Street. As you can see, this is kind of a modern home. It was a KU kind of experimental home. It was all supposed to be modern and energy efficient and everything else. What you don't see is this is the living room to the home. The back of the home has also this kind of wide open area that she looks out. The back of that home is this person's bedroom. And remember, we said that we built the substation, we took it down in there. Well, now right out the back of that individual's bedroom, they actually look down onto the substation. That's not really an issue because of the foliage in the back during 9 months out of the year. However, during those 3 months and 3 to 4 months when there's limited foliage and we're waiting for spring to come, that does put an impact on this landowner. We will also work with her with some screening. But one of our main concerns is, as you can see, her home just drops off right at the back here. It's hard to get mature trees up there in the screening. The other one that this landowner, part of the conditional use permit, the unified government wanted us, and we're still in negotiation with them, to put a dead end or a cul-de-sac or a T at the end of Lloyd Street. This resident has a slight issue with that because at the end, that's where people now park and congest and the garbage that was there. So we're still working through that issue. And then the third one is actually on top. This individual is a little bit further away from the substation. So looking out the back, the substation would be right back out here, of course, below the tree line. But this is one of a very premier photographer in the Wyandotte area. Part of her backyard she actually uses for studio purposes. So not only does she have a studio in her basement, but she also has some planter boxes and some areas for sitting, and she takes professional, grade photography out there. Again, during that 3 to 4 months when you have limited foliage, her backdrop now becomes a little bit of the substation. So with this landowner, we've also worked with her about screening different type of trees that she can have just by her studio space so that she still maintains that business. And we've worked with her, lovely woman, been inside of her house, and we're happy with the arrangement that we've had. The other one and the last one is, we're going to build some things, and like any builder, there's going to be some things that get a little dirty, and our promise is that we are going to restore it better and back to new. Things like negligent curb damage. I just mentioned that we moved 70,000 cubic yards of rock out of there. We've had 1 or 2 areas where there's been some curb damage, and we know that we have to replace that. We're adding the sidewalk along South Minnie, so that will be a restoration part of the project. We'll work and continue to work with the Parks Department, where we're going to connect those walking trails. And when I say we, the BPU is not going to do that, but allow the Parks Department, access to that land that the BPU bought and purchased, so that those walking trails can now be connected. Currently, before the project went on, that was privately owned land. Although people walk there and you had it, now it could be a project for the Parks Department that is there and viable. In addition, I mentioned we'll have the substation, removal for the Fisher substation, and then we will repair all the access, ingress, and egress routes when we do the transmission lines this fall. Pending any questions, that concludes my brief.
Are there questions from the committee members or comments? I, for one, appreciate the presentation, and I will say that I appreciate that we have Mr. Bill Johnson, our brand new general manager at the Board of Public Utilities here. Thank you for taking your time to be here, and Jeremy Ash also with the BPU on standby for questions and support. I know it's a big project. This is an information-only item. However, is there any member of the public that wants to comment on this item? Beg your pardon? So this item's for information, and then we have 2 more items behind it that will require votes. So we have Mr. Jeff Bain here with Unified Government Legal Counsel, and he's going to bring us 2 related items to this BPU substation project. Mr. Bain.
Good evening, Commissioners. The first item is the approval of the survey, which starts the eminent domain proceeding, should that be necessary. Mr. Russell told me before the meeting started that on the western line, the Barber line, they're down to only needing one easement, which potentially making that negotiation and not needing any eminent domain proceedings, but that's the first item, is approving that survey.
So questions or comments? If not, I'll take a motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second on this item. Are there, excuse me, I should say, are there questions or comments from the public on the item? If not, I'll ask for roll call.
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Final.
Aye. That motion carries. Item 3 on our agenda tonight is a resolution authorizing a survey of lands for BPU Armourdale to Rosedale transmission line. Mr. Bain?
And so this is the northern line that was going north. Mr. Russell told me that there are 4 properties left to acquire easements, and those are railroad easements, and so we know that will be a little more challenging. And so again, this is the first step in the eminent domain process.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley. Aye. Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Final.
Aye. And those motions carry. Thank you, sir. Thank you all to the BPU for being here. And the next item that we're moving to is an ordinance repealing our citywide ban on pit bulls. And as we transition forward on these items, we have got Mr. Conway, I believe, with legal here. And we have Acting Lieutenant Colonel Kent Anderson and Jennifer Stewart, our Director of Animal Services. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Conway, are you going to just briefly go over the language of the repeal piece of the ordinance? And then we have Animal Services here for any kinds of questions we might have on data or statistics. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Jeff Conway, Legal Department. I think in your packet you may have the actual ordinance itself, but I could read it and go through the terms if you'd like.
I think what I would prefer is, if I understand correctly, and you could give this to us maybe in just a quick summary, but I think the action is that the vote would be to repeal just a portion of the language in the current ordinance that eliminates the pit bull language.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Currently there's a prohibition on, as an ordinance, the action would repeal that prohibition and thereby permit pit bulls in the county.
And that's basically it in a nutshell.
That's it. The ordinance does identify the 3 breeds.
Why don't you go ahead and specify those?
Yeah, it's there's the Staffordshire Bull Terrier, the American Pit Bull Terrier, and the American Staffordshire Terrier, and then dogs that have characteristics of those breeds.
So, for purposes of clarity around the item, in 2014, the Unified Government Commission adopted a dangerous dog ordinance, which is why, and it's encompassing of any breed of dog, which is why we believed, one of the reasons why we believed we could bring forward now the repeal of the pit bull type language in the existing ordinance. So we will hear from the public on this item, but first we'll hear from any members of our committee that have questions or comments. And again, we do have staff here if we have questions about data or information relating to our animal services. So are there comments or questions? Commissioner Philbrook.
Yeah, I comments and questions. So when was the pit bull ordinance brought into effect? Do you remember that?
From the history, it looks like it may have come in 2003.
I believe you probably need to look a little further back. I don't like to argue with our lawyers, but I think it was in the 1990-ish timeframe. But at any rate, so it was in effect before we came before
It was May,
the commission.
May of 1990.
There you go, May of 1990. So it was in effect quite a while, and then by the time we got to 2014 and initiated a law, thank God we had plenty of people in the legal department that worked really hard to put that together, because it's very distinct and captures an outline of how we deal with animals that are not behaving in a manner which you want them to be part of your community. So if the dog's dangerous or they're acting up, we have exact laws to deal with it, and it doesn't matter what kind of dog it is. We don't have to look for that. So, and then am I correct in saying that those animals that are picked up and are thought to be dangerous, like bit somebody or is running around the neighborhood and attacking things. Now this is just assuming it's a dangerous dog, not any particular kind of dog. Then there is a ticket written or something like that for the owner, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then that ticket and the owner has to go to court.
Correct.
And so that's when it's determined whether that dog is a dangerous dog or not.
Yes.
But we already have guidelines for the judges to follow, depending on what is determined. So it's pretty cut and dried as far as what happens. We don't have to think about what kind of dog. It's just that dog. That particular animal was acting out and was dangerous. And then a lot of other different sections on down. So that takes care of that part. I just wanted to make sure people understood that we have laws already in place that make owners responsible for their dogs if we bring them in for doing something like that. Okay. Now, so in case you guys don't remember, way back in 2016, we did a community survey and literally asked people in that survey, and that was for seven of the 8 districts. District 7, we didn't ask because those 2 cities in that district already have repealed that ban. So they don't have a pit bull ban. So it was asked though in the other, and it came out to be, or about 84% of those people said they wanted the pit bull ban repealed. So that's telling us as commissioners that our people want something done, okay? And so with that in mind, we have been collecting data. I shouldn't say we, you have been collecting data, letting us know what the breed-specific law is costing us and how that's working. And so 24% of our total budget is spent on breed-specific services, okay? That's $246,000 just on breed-specific. So that means that instead of being able to look at the animals, any animal that's acting up and doing something wrong, we get sent out to pick up an animal that's been said that is a pit bull. Well, there's a lot of animals out there that look like pit bulls, and we have quite a few people that have gotten their animals taken, and $4,000 or $5,000 later, after they prove that their dog is not a pit bull, or they give up, and they have to find somebody that will house that dog that's out of this county, then, that's pretty expensive. Plus, we have to spend extra time housing that animal. So that's also kind of tough for us. There are a lot of other comments I would like to make, but I'm gonna wait and see what other people have to say, and if there's things that weren't brought up, please do tell me. I have had, and I'm not gonna use any officers' names to protect the innocent, you like that? I have had officers tell me that they are kind of upset with the fact that there are times when they would like to have animals picked up, but we don't have enough officers in animal control or animal services to do that. And so they would really like to see us be able to pick up those dogs that they're seeing acting up instead of just picking up a dog that looks a certain way. And so I've gotten that feedback from the officers. They're kind of frustrated with that too. And, you know, they have to come out to repeated calls because an animal has been killing cats or whatever that animal's been doing, but we don't have the availability to send our other officers out in animal services to deal with it. And you know, we are strapped for money, and so spending a quarter of our money just on a breed-specific dog is really, I think, a waste of money. But we need to be more effective in how we do it. Is there any other numbers you'd like to add to any of this that's been affecting you? Please do. I'm asking you to tell us because you're the one that has to deal with it.
Okay. I think the most interesting number is our length of stay, our average length of stay for a current breed, a current pit bull, basically, and that just encompasses all three that Mr. Conway had mentioned. The average length of stay is 71 days for a pit bull, and the average length of stay for a non-pit bull is 52 days. So we're keeping these dogs for a significant amount of time that we do our best to try to find them homes. We are limited in where we can send a foster or to have the animal adopted. And so that causes us to take up a space in a kennel that is pretty precious because we have 81 kennels, you know, for a population of 150,000 in our community. And I don't know how many animals there are, but most homes have at least one dog. So that ban is really keeping us from getting animals adopted at a rate that a non-banned dog would be adopted, and that really hurts us.
Well, part of the problem too, so if I'm one of those owners and somebody picks up my dog, because you know how dogs are, sometimes they like to get out, and I don't care whether it's a Chihuahua or a Mastiff. Sometimes they have a way of getting out, and when that happens and somebody picks them up and they end up down at the shelter, then am I going to go back down and pick that dog up if it is deemed illegal? Probably not. You know, so I'm going to leave you holding the bag with that animal and trying to find a home for it because I won't come down to get it. Okay? And not speaking personally because I don't have one. I don't have any dogs right now. But the point being is that I don't want other folks to feel like their loved animal, they can't go down and get it because it got out and got picked up. And then we the people have to pay to take care of that animal. We don't recoup any of our money on that. So it's not like when other dogs get picked up that get reclaimed and the folks pay for that. It doesn't happen with them. So I just wanted to mention that because I know you know it. I appreciate that. What else do you want to tell us?
I think that just the average length of stay is probably the most important part. You already touched on the money. It's well over $250,000. We could use that money for more space to pick up more animals. We could use that money for an adoption counselor, coordinator. Just more space in general is what we need, and more staff to help facilitate moving these animals into homes or other rescues. Or so
spay and neutering and chipping. So that means that we could take that money that it would how much did you say you thought it would I think we were talking one time, you told me about how much you thought it would cost us to chip all the animals that came in.
About
to us.
$18,000.
Yeah, and we don't have that money right now, and if we could chip those animals, then we could find them if they got loose again. We wouldn't have to look for them, and we know who their owner was.
Right, and we get a lot of return customers, so it would be nice to know that where the animal's supposed to go to. And so our number, it kind of varies. So I did the number for 2018, our pit bull count was at about 19%. Today I did an inventory and it's 38%. So it varies. But overall for last year it was 19%, and today, as we speak, it's 38%. So again, it varies, but that's 25 dogs right now that we are going to have a hard time finding a home for.
So besides the $240,000, how much money are we missing out on from not being able to get grants because we have a breed-specific law?
I don't know how many. I know one specifically. I've heard it's anywhere between $30,000 and $50,000, and that was to help us with an adoption coordinator or some kind of staffing position. But from
It's just that one grant, and you haven't bothered trying to look because they won't.
Right, because there are very few that will offer a grant that has a breed-specific language right now.
Got it. Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to say right now? Okay, so we might have more questions for you, but thank you. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions from the commission, Commissioner Johnson?
Mine is just with regard to the violations and penalties section of the current ordinance. If this repeal goes into place, how will the penalties differ, if at all, from what is currently in the current ordinance for pit bulls?
I'd like to clarify too, because I don't think I was all that clear. So this measure would repeal the pit bull ordinance, and in place would remain the other sections about dangerous animals and vicious animals, and those penalties are still the same.
Okay.
Dangerous animal, I believe, is $300 minimum.
Right. $800 and $1,000 maximum. Court may sentence the defendant to imprisonment up to 90 days. The language would continue in the dangerous dog legislation.
Correct, and so this measure doesn't touch that at all. That stays as current law. And vicious animal, you'd probably lose the dog.
Thank you. Now, any other comments or questions from the committee? I think we have some folks in the audience that would like to speak to this issue. And so the way I think I'll take it is this: if you're here, 2 or 3 or 4 of you in agreement with repealing the pit bull language in our ordinance, we'd ask you to step to the microphone, introduce yourself and your city of residence, and you'll be given 3 minutes. We'll do the same for any audience members that are here in opposition to the repeal. I hope I've made myself clear. Yes, go ahead and speak directly into the microphone.
Hi, thank you, and thank you all for this time and for what you do for the community. My name is Kate Fields. I'm the CEO and president of the Humane Society of Greater Kansas City. I appreciate your time and the fact that I would be able to speak to you about what we run up against in the community. We're proud to be partners with KCK Animal Services. We're the veterinarian of license. And what that means is that we are down every day, sometimes 6 days a week, taking care of the animal control animal services. So what we're up against, we have a shelter, we have a clinic, and what we find is that, and we take any of the hurt, abused, neglected animals from animal services, we repair them, we take care of them on our dime, and then we try to find homes for them. Animal Services is full, and they do have, I think, 38% animal or pit bull mixes. We've got roughly 40% in our shelter, and we're not a big shelter. So part of the problem that we find is when we take the animals that are hurt, a lot of them do come in pit bull mixes. We fix them, and then we have to try to find homes outside of our community. So that means, and 10 years ago, we put the Ray of Hope program into place to help take animals out of KCK that weren't being adopted to Olathe PetSmart to be adopted. We're still doing that. It's our volunteers that are still taking animals out to Olathe and getting them adopted. Thank God now that Jennifer's around and we are being able to adopt animals out of animal control, but it's still a hardship when we have to take them 30 minutes away. It's stressful for the animals, and if they don't get adopted, 30 minutes back, stressful. I will say too that since we are down there every day of the week, you're all paying us to take care of those animals, and they're in a stressful condition, and I don't care how nice a kennel is, it's still a kennel. So they're capable of picking up anything, any type of disease because of the stress that they're under. So you're paying us, and we're happy to do it, but that's a big cost to the unified government. So when we take these animals in, and if a pit bull gets loose, pit bull mix, and it's hit by a car, we take that animal and we take care of it. It's not easy on us. It's a hardship. I have to go out and raise money to try and do this. We were the first no-kill shelter in greater Kansas City area. We're proud to be that way, and we're proud with what Animal Services has done to become close to being a no-kill shelter. That's the way it should be. This is an outdated and archaic law. I would appreciate you thinking about this. It's just not easy on us. We're the only shelter in KCK, and when people are coming us to say, hey, can you take animals? Animal Services is full, and I have to say we are too, because we can't adopt out in our own community. So I appreciate the fact that you're looking at this for us. It definitely is a compromise. We already have dangerous dog law on our books, and it just seems redundant to me. But I appreciate it, and I'll be available if anybody needs me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there another speaker or two in favor of repeal? Yes. You will have 3 minutes, and our clerk will, raise your hand, clerk, I'm sorry. She will let you know when your time has expired, and if you would speak directly into the microphone, please.
Okay, thank you. Just want to say good evening. Thank you all for the opportunity and for being here tonight. My name is Kaylee. I've been a resident here for 8 years now, and I recently moved to District 2 from 4. I actually just want to talk about my experience when I was younger and how it impacted me and what I've learned from that. So when I was about 4, I was actually attacked by my dog. He was a Doberman Pinscher, and it took the top of my head off. So basically, my mom had told me not to go out, not to let the dog out, and I naturally did the opposite. I was playing with newspapers and playing towards the dog, and his natural instinct would be to protect himself. So me as a child, not knowing that the dog may react that way, I didn't think anything of it. So as I grew a little older, my mom reintroduced me to dogs, taught me how to approach a dog, the proper way to do that, and how to behave around dogs, as well as obviously kept an eye on me in any type of situation. The event definitely could have been avoided. As a child, my mom took responsibility for that. Really wasn't the dog's fault per se. It was definitely ours, and it could have been avoided. I think it is more so the behavior of an animal that we need to be looking at versus the breed. Any dog can show signs of aggression. It's not just one thing in particular, one breed specifically. Recently, within the last couple of years, started volunteering at Unleashed. It's a pet rescue. And I've worked with many different type of dogs, most of them being pit bulls, and I've actually found that they're one of my favorite type of dogs. They're very loving, and never been scared to approach one. And I think it's important that we're informed about the behavior of an animal and to pay attention to signs of aggression. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then are there one or maybe two more speakers in favor of repeal? You'll have 3 minutes if you'll state your name and your city of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I am Brendan Filbert, and I am in Commissioner Philbrook's district. Thank you. I voted for you. You're doing a great job.
We'll see how she votes next time.
I am watching you, so. Thank you very much for hearing us on this very important matter. Now, I could talk a lot about stats and about any data points because I think you can pretty much find whatever point of view that you want to support your own point of view if you dig deep enough and hard enough. And I thought rather than doing that, I'd just share my own personal experience. As Commissioner Philbrook shared a little earlier, there are a lot of situations where people are just saying, hey, this looks like a pit bull and I'm mad at my neighbor. And we actually had that happen to us where I had my neighbor came over and he told me, he said, I want to first of all apologize, he said, because I didn't mean to do it. And she got mad because we had an older German Shepherd mix that went over and he left a deposit in her yard. And he is, he's an older dog with some incontinence issues, and we didn't catch him before he made his way over there. And anyway, he came over and he said, my wife got mad and she knows that you just took in another dog and she reported you for having a pit bull. And he said, we're very sorry because we know this is going to create an issue. And sure enough, got up to my front door and there was a notice from animal control that I needed to contact them. So called them and left a message, and this was like 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Called them again at 8 o'clock the next morning as soon as their office hours were open, and then called again the following morning at 8 a.m. to let them know that we were trying to get this taken care of because the notification basically said that they needed us to call. So then at the end of the third day, animal control pulls in my driveway, and he walks in and introduces himself, delightful gentleman. And he said, I have to, I've got to investigate this complaint of a dangerous dog and a pit bull. And he said, can you show me the dog? And about this time, of course, she's bouncing around his ankles. And I said, that's the one. He said, well, that's not a pit bull. He's like, that's a mastiff. And you can't miss the fact that she's a mastiff. I mean, it was funny because when we adopted her from animal control, they were even the ones that told us she was a mastiff. So it was just one of those situations that was very frustrating because it had taken him the amount of time to come out and put the notice on our door. And then there was also whatever was going on that he could have been doing and not coming to our house. I know it was at least half an hour that he was there because he was very gracious. And he spent time with us and just gave us suggestions about managing, neighbor relations. And, of course, now we do everything we can to make sure that we follow Bob around with the pooper scooper so that it doesn't happen again. So where we live in Wyandotte County, we are surrounded by lots and lots of open space and a lot of stray dogs running around. We have livestock. We have packs of dogs that are roaming around neighborhoods that truly are dangerous. Thank you very much for hearing us on this very important matter.
Thank you very much. And yes, one more speaker in favor of, and then we'll move on. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Angie Reidemeyer, and I live in District 5. Thank you for your time and this opportunity to testify in favor of the repeal. I have strong ties to the Kansas City, Kansas community. I've lived here most of my life, and I've been a homeowner for the past 9 years. I also work in the community. I've taught in both the KCK and Piper school districts for the past 5 years. And I'm very involved in rescue, and I have fostered many animals from Kansas City, Kansas Animal Services over the past 6 years. So dogs and children are very dear to my heart. Between having owned dogs all of my life and my involvement in animal welfare, I've worked with dogs of all breeds and behaviors. And pit bull dogs are just dogs are dogs, just dogs like any other, and should be treated as individuals. It's impossible to predict if a dog is dangerous based on its looks and not its behavior, and any breed of dog can be dangerous. KCK has a dangerous dog ordinance that is much more effective at addressing the behavior of all dog breeds, regardless of how it looks. It does not make sense for the UG to have both ordinances. The dangerous dog ordinance is much easier to enforce, while the breed ban is expensive and does not work. Also, labeling a dog by its looks is subjective, and many dogs are misidentified as pit bulls when they're not. And when this happens, then the dog owners rack up thousands of dollars in legal bills, fighting citations, and possibly having to give up their beloved dogs. So this causes hardship for many people who cannot afford it, and it results in having to make a hard decision to not fight an incorrect identification and abandoning their dog at the shelter. The breed ban, also, as she just spoke about, can be bad for relationships among neighbors. The animal services officers need to spend their valuable time investigating, not investigating the complaints and picking up stray animals or enforcing the dangerous dog ordinance instead. So in conclusion, it is time to repeal the pit bull ban in KCK and stop wasting valuable resources on an ordinance that does not only not work, it causes harm and hardship in our community. We are all better off if we focus on enforcing the dangerous dog ordinance instead.
Thank you very much. Are there people here in the audience that are here in favor of lifting the breed-specific language or the pit bull language in our ordinance? And if so, would you like to stand up if you did not get a chance to speak at this time? Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to come to the podium to speak against the repeal of this ordinance? Okay, any more? Commissioner Markley.
I did just want to make a couple of observations. So all of us have been receiving emails from people who are in opposition to lifting this ban. And one thing that they keep providing is statistical information, which I love. Everyone knows I love statistics. What I find interesting about those statistics is that they're sending us information from Kansas City, Missouri, which has a pit bull ban. And what those statistics show is that there are still pit bull attacks happening in Kansas City, Missouri. So we know people here own pit bulls, and they're obviously owning them in Kansas City, Missouri, despite the fact that there's an ordinance saying they can't own them. What we're trying to do is create an environment where people can own a pit bull and they're punished for the right reasons if the pit bull is misbehaving. So I want to recognize we are getting those emails. I'm seeing them, I'm reading them, but I think, in fact, they might be reinforcing what we're trying to do here. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Just for the record, I never wanted to ban in the first place. My daughter had, you can't clap. I would love for you to clap, but you can't clap. But, and what the last speaker just said happened to us. My daughter had 2 pit bulls in college down in Pittsburgh State. She was staying by herself. We wanted a little extra protection, and they were strictly teddy bears. And when she come home from college, she couldn't have been home for more than 5 minutes. She was going to take the dogs to the farm. She let the dog out of the car. 5 minutes later, I've got somebody standing at my doorway saying, "Where are your pit bulls?" Somebody turned me in. It was at the pool when I lived in Westmore Downs. And it's not the dogs. It's never been the dogs. You know, I had a German Shepherd when I was growing up. My wife had a German Shepherd, and the biggest Doberman Pinscher you ever saw in your life. All of them good dogs. Why we singled this one breed out is wrong. It's not the dog. It's the people that raise the dog. And Jane, up to you.
Commissioner Philbrook, did you want to make any additional comments?
Well, the whole reason of bringing this back up is because of exactly the fact that we are wasting money. And we need that money sorely to take care of business. We're way undermanned. A city this size should have 20 officers, and we have how many? 4 active officers. Okay. So what does that tell you? That tells you they're undermanned, what a word to use, underpersoned, and need a lot more help, and we've got $1 million budget. But I'm going to go ahead and mention the fact that between KCK Pet Project and the HELP program, those people have worked so hard. They have spent, raised, and whatever, $1 million this year to help just Wyandotte County folks. This is not what we have spent. This is other people helping us take care of our community. And without them, you don't even want to think how bad it would be out there. So they have helped us. They've been spay, neutering, and vaccinating to the tune of, this is KCK Pet Help, 2018, $239,000 that they spent. The volunteers, so the volunteers have been working up to 24 hours a week in 2018. That's 2,800 hours to get a hold of dogs, okay? And for cats, they've caught 1,800 feral cats, spay, neutered, and clipped the ear and returned them back. And we're talking about food and all kinds of things. The list is long. And I can't tell those folks how much, there's no way. Sorry, I'm getting all teary. So it's exciting to me to see people who actually care about our community and go out and help us. So thank you. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So at this time, I would accept a motion on this item. I have a motion and a second on this. Could I have roll call, please?
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley. Aye. Kane. Aye. Johnson. Aye. Bynum.
Aye. That motion. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And if you want to leave, that's perfectly fine. We understand. Just please do that quietly, and we'll transition into our next item. Thank you, Animal Services. We really appreciate you as well. No, you're fine. You're fine. Item 5 is a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with Johnson County for,
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening.
just one sec, for the use of their community. So this will be a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with Johnson County for the use of their communication center's 911 phone and radio communications equipment as emergency backup. And we have Casey Meyer here.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm not going to repeat what you just said because that's exactly what it is. But we have Major Quinn here as a representative from the police department if you have any questions. But it's a very basic contract with Johnson County, and the police department would only be using their dispatch services in the case of an emergency.
Thank you. So I do have one question. This item is separate from and different from the communications center remodel project.
Yes, that's correct.
Could you expand on that just briefly?
Sure.
Because aren't we also going to use them as a backup plan for that as well?
We are, and at this time, they have decided that for our run-of-the-mill emergency situations where we need a backup center, that's the interlocal agreement here.
Okay.
They have not come forth with an agreement to allow us to use during the remodel process. They've basically just stated verbally that this would be a test for us to utilize their center. We're going to do it now and again this fall, and currently there's been no discussions of any kind of additional charges in that.
Okay. That's easy. Thank you. Is there a motion on this item?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley. Aye. Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye, and that motion carries. Thank you very much. We are at item 6 on this agenda, and we have a report on the operation of the Joe Amayo Community Center in Argentine. And we have Jeremy Rogers, Director of Parks and Rec, and we also have Jack Webb, Assistant Director, and Angel Olbert with the department here. And we've created, I believe, a brief slide presentation on the community center at this time. So I'll turn it over to you and let you walk through this presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. In 2016, the county health rankings came out. As we all know, we finished last, 101 of 101. So the UG made a commitment to dedicate to improving the quality of life for all its residents by meeting their health, living, and recreational needs. With that in mind, the budget workshops were held to discuss the possibility of potential upgrades at the Joe E. Amayo Community Center. The Commission voted in July of 2016 to move forward with, there we go, sorry about that. The Commission voted in July of 2016 to move forward with funding necessary upgrades to house a fitness facility. The county administration instructed Parks and Recreation to request a notice of need for a proposed fitness center at the Joe E. Amayo Community Center. That notice of need was posted on August 15th, 2016. Here's the timeline for that notice of need. It went out, we received proposals, and it was awarded on September 16, 2016 to Metro 24 Fitness. That contract with them started on April 22nd, 2017. The construction process went out to bid on December 15, 2016. Those bids that we received range from $370,000 to $520,000. The B. Dean Construction submitted the lowest bid, and we awarded that contract to them. Construction of the facility began on February 2017 and finished in April of that same year. Some of the things that were done during phase one: parking lot and outdoor lights were upgraded, ADA access through the west entrance, entrance modifications, so for 24/7 access into that fitness facility. Renovation of the existing multi-purpose and fitness room was renovated into a new usable space. Approximately just over 6,000 square feet renovated. The fitness center of that space makes up 3,300 square feet. We also upgraded the interior finishes at the corridor. Restrooms were renovated to become ADA compliant, and then security cameras were added. That phase one project total cost $388,400. Phase two, which was just recently completed, was the front entrance and the lobby reconstruction, as well as adding air conditioning, 4 new air conditioning units into the gymnasium. That project cost $224,000. So for the total project cost of renovations to that facility was $812,000. Of that 812, 332 was voted on funded by the commission. Outside funds from grants were $280,000, and then Metro 24 fitness contribution was $200,000. All right, Metro 24 Fitness entered into a contract with the UG that began on April 22nd, 2017. Some of the responsibilities of Metro 24 is to provide a state-of-the-art full-service fitness center 24/7. They're to provide memberships at $19.99 a month for Wyandotte County residents. They actively market, advertise, and promote the fitness center. They provide information, membership, and/or usage reports to the UG. They're expected to operate and manage the fitness center for at least 18 continuous months after the date it first opens. The current contract is valid until December 31st, 2020. After that expires, it can be renewed annually with mutual agreements between the UG and Metro 24 Fitness. Parks and Recreation currently handles all the scheduling of programs, activities, and events that take place in the Joe E. Amayo Community Center. That is all done through our office at 50th and State. The Phase 2 renovations provided a larger and more efficient multi-purpose room to allow for programs and meeting space for the community to utilize. The community center is open to the public for use through the Parks and Recreation reservation process, as I mentioned. The studio room is predominantly reserved through Parks and Recreation by Metro 24 Fitness for programming, but it is a shared space. Addition of Metro 24 Fitness has increased the center usage as a whole. If you look at this chart on the right, previously we had our own little fitness center. We had about 50 members per year. Metro 24 is up to almost 1,200 members. So they're doing better than we did. Programming. Around 20 groups were relocated during the renovation during the construction process. Accommodations were made available for those groups at other community centers such as the B. Lee Community Center, the Armourdale Community Center, Kensington, and whatnot. Upon completion of the construction, each user group was contacted and offered to return to the center. Groups were either happy at their new location, relocated back to the Joe E. Amayo Community Center, or disbanded due to low participation numbers. To date, an average of 45 user groups have ongoing reservations. Metro 24 Fitness has several of those with their fitness programs. 300 plus patrons between Metro 24 and the community center has over 300 people going through the center per day. The highest use in 2017 was 93 visits previous to Metro 24. The highest usage this year so far is 330 patrons through that facility. 95% of members of Metro 24 Fitness are from Wyandotte County. If you look over here at this, there we go, at this chart right here, this is a layout of the building. This is the gymnasium. This is Metro 24 right there. This is the shared space that I talked about earlier. The gym is just over 7,000 square feet. This little entry, where our office, multi-purpose room, community room is now, that's 6,500 square feet. The building as a whole, the whole thing, is 16,850 square feet. Of that, Parks and Recreation controls 13,550. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions or comments from the members of the committee? Commissioner Markley.
So as some of you know, this community center is on the cusp of Commissioner Murguia's district and my district. So I have been there frequently. Before this change occurred, you'd go in the center and you might be the only person there, the only human in the whole building. We rented it for a family event once and we were the only people there. ABC offered a winter program where they put up bouncy houses in the gym, and my husband would take our little guy there, and he and two other kids would be the only people in the building. And so this is an amazing transformation, and now if you go down there, it's busy all the time. There's a whole variety of events happening, all different types of people all the time. So that's how community centers should be. We want all of our community centers to be full of activities, whether that happens because we're just offering additional programming or because in this case we had a partnership that increased traffic. And I think the great thing is even people that are not members of the fitness center, they have been exposed to the building in different ways because of just increased traffic. So it's exciting to see everyone busy in that building. It's exciting to have the problem for once of not having enough space for everything that we'd want to see happen there. We went through a similar transition in my district at Turner Rec, where we started out with a building that had very, very little activity, and now it's overflowing. So that's the kind of problem we want to have. I'd love to have that problem at more of our community centers and be having that kind of discussion about how to find more space for our awesome programming and for services to our community.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook, did you have a comment?
I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
does Metro 24 Fitness pay any kind of lease monies or anything, or we just let them operate?
No,
Okay.
in their contract, they do not pay a lease at this current time.
No, do not clap. Sorry, guys, but these are just point of information. Do not clap back there, please. You'll have your opportunity. So that was the agreement for them coming in and helping us upgrade that particular facility, and so that's what you see. So that's what we saw as the reason for doing it.
Absolutely. I wasn't involved in those negotiations, but I do understand that another aspect of having them there and not pay a lease is to subsidize, to keep that user fee at $19.99 per month. If you go elsewhere, if you go to the YMCA or other competitors, it is more expensive. And so that was one of the caveat to that contract.
So yeah, so at the time, so I don't know how much the Y charges. Now, I know as a senior citizen, it was like $39 a month, you know, and so that's just with the Y. So, and that's one person. So I can see where $18, $19 would look a whole lot better to some folks than the 40 or whatever it might be. But on the other hand, maintaining a workout center is expensive. And so I believe that, because I was involved in it, I think it was nobody wants to go into this kind of business. You don't want to be faint of heart to try to open up a fitness center. You got to know what the heck you're doing, and you have to have money to put into it. So I don't believe we really wanted to run a fitness center, and I believe that's one of the reasons we did it, if I remember correctly. Is that? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there other comments or questions from this committee? Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I just wanted to get some clarification. Under programming, you said around 20 groups were relocated during the renovation process, and that those groups were contacted and offered to return to the center. And so if for some reason, say one of those were in my district, they had a choice as to whether or not they would go back to the center at Argentine.
Yes.
And so what you're suggesting is that they were happy with their new location if they chose not to go back?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And were any of the community offered an opportunity to speak one way or the other as to whether they should move or stay permanently or stay temporarily in a particular center? Were they asked, anyone from the community asked or brought into that discussion?
Not to my knowledge. I know there was, this did go before the Parks Board, but that Joe Connor came to speak to it at the Parks Board, and they did not have a quorum that night, so.
Okay, so that's a good way for me to come back around and ask my question. I'm just concerned or I'm wondering if the Parks Board, was that ever brought up to them at any point relative to where the groups would either stay for a temporary basis or for a permanent basis? If a group wanted to stay there in a particular group outside of Argentine, was that discussed at the Park Board level?
No, it was not.
Okay. I think it probably should be, because I think you might get some interesting response from those that are on the Park Board for that particular issue. I have no other comments relative to.
I'd like to talk about Parks Board, because Parks Board is an advisory board, and some people seem to think that the Parks Board can vote something in and move it to commission. And so I don't want people to get that idea, but the Parks Board is very important because they're supposed to be representing our city and the folks in it and letting us know what we think, what they think. You know, tell us what we need to think, you know, tell us, put it in there, you know, because we don't always know. We get some people who let us know, but usually folks don't call us or let us know things unless they feel very, very passionate about it. A lot of people, it's pretty much, okay, they can do this, it's all right, that. And so we don't hear anything.
But to your point, I would say then, to the extent that we get the Parks Board advice as our representation, it would be nice to see what they think about the new reconfiguration of the programming that has been moved from Argentine into other areas of the community. I'm really particularly sensitive to 4th District, obviously, but if there are any comments or any pushback or in terms of their advice, I would certainly love to hear that at that level.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, and I'd also ask that when we get ready to do some stuff like this, that we actually go to the Parks Board and let them know that we're planning on doing some things so they can be part of the community vetting process. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, I concur.
I mean, I really do, because the people on this Parks Board are dedicated to caring about our community, because it's not like they get paid to be on there. So they care about it, and they want to make sure that their communities are represented. But up until recent, they've helped with things, but we haven't let them play a formative vision in this. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Couple of points. Jeremy, on your FAQ page, that one, highest use day in 2019 is 330 visits. Now, do you know the balance of those visits between community center or fitness center? I mean, you said you're tracking the numbers. They're reporting to you their numbers, and you're tracking the numbers. So is it 330 visits, 50% of which were at a community center function and 50% of which were going to the fitness center, or do we have that breakdown?
I don't have that breakdown at this time. I can get that. For this project, we combined them,
Okay.
So I apologize.
That might
I
be
don't-
helpful to know, but in an earlier slide, I thought you said that the fitness center is, Parks and Rec is, go back one slide. I'm sorry. Now I don't know which direction you're going. Under the usage page, Parks and Rec handles the scheduling, activities, and events. I don't know. I thought I saw a bullet point that made reference to them reporting to you their usage. It's in the contract slide. Thank you. Here we go. Metro 24 provides information, membership, and/or usage reports. So I would think through that reporting, you'd begin to be able to extrapolate.
Yes.
When we have a daily highest use of 330, we would know
Correct.
it's rec, Parks and Rec, or it's fitness.
Correct.
It would be good and interesting for us to know that data.
Okay. I can
So
report that back to you.
that's what I was trying to get at. Now, I will say that I have asked our legal department to render a decision to us on the role of our Parks Board. It seems to be an item of conversation as this and other Parks and Rec topics come up. So soon, I hope we will know what our legal department interprets our own laws to be, and we can all have a full understanding of this advisory board / policy-making board. That is the place where I would rely to get that ruling on what the purpose of our Parks Board is. And I will say that this item, the reason this item is on our agenda tonight is at my request, because we had a request from a community member to speak on this topic, and it was Miss Aguirre. Are you here? So if we don't have any other comments or questions from our committee members, I would invite you to the podium to give your comments. Personally, I wanted to have some clarification around data and information, so I appreciate that you're here. If you'll tell us your name and city of residence, you'll have 3 minutes, and we'd ask you to speak into the microphone, please.
So hello, my name is Diana Aguirre. I'm sure you guys are familiar with me. I live in Argentine. I've been a community activist over 22 years. I've lived in Argentine 35, so 22 years we volunteered, my husband and I. We've always had events at the community center for 17 years. Youth nights, we would get 350 kids at the youth nights. They would be in the community center, they would have a great time. We never asked anything from Parks and Rec. We did it all on a volunteer basis. Trick-or-treat villages, we'd have like 1,700 kids, and on Halloween Day, to get candy, all the community would be invited. We had dance programs. We have boxing programs that we'd like to be put in there. But I want to start out really by saying I really think I need an apology from the unified government, Doug Bach, because he put on their website that there were a group of residents concerned about the future of the recreation centers, that we were spreading misinformation and fueling rumors about the centers, that they were going to privatize them to the fitness centers. So I would like to have an apology from him and Mr. Bach and Jeremy. And he said at the time, Doug Bach, but we won't move forward on any proposed changes at this time. That's not until we turn around and are not looking. And as far as the parks board, they are a policy-making board. Back in April 23rd, 1998, it states that they are a policy-making board, that Doug Bach, or whoever is a county administrator at the time, to come to the Parks Board and create the budget with them. That has not been done for probably since the time that I went in front of them, because some commissioner was trying to put $2,975,000 home on Clopper Field. At that time, Parks and Rec voted to keep Clopper Field a park. Thank you, Parks Board members at the time. I do have the proof here. Okay, and real quick, and so I just want to say that we were at the board meeting, and there was supposed to be a vote but there wasn't. I have talked to the taxation department in Topeka, and I have told them about what has been happening at the Mile Center. I have given them every information. They sent me an email, and I know I don't have enough time, but I do have so much documentation, so much proof that you went behind our back. We did not have a public meeting. You guys discussed it back on 2015, not with the community, but amongst yourself. We are the voters. We pay taxes to be able to give a for-profit company, and that's what they are. They make $20 a month for 12 months. They make over $250,000 off of our community, where our kids pay $15 every time they are at park to have are playing a sport at the parks. And here are your quarterly reports, Jeremy. Here's your, may I speak a few more?
You may, let me stop you just briefly so I can take a motion for 2 more minutes of time for you. Is there a motion? Second? A second? Okay, all in favor say aye. 2 more minutes, please.
Okay, real quick. These are the quarterly reports. This is who signs in. That is a quarterly report. If I handed that in to my boss, I would be reprimanded or fired. And there it is, 2018 to 2019. Here is the lease. They are not a management company. That's what you're trying to tell everybody, that they're a management company. They own it. I have a video from the ribbon cutting stating, the commissioner at the time stating that Matt Warner owns the 24 Fitness Center. I also have the contracts. I also have a purchase order that's $500,000 that was put back into the Argentine Community Center for air condition. For years, our kids suffered in the heat. This gentleman comes around and we spent $500,000 on probably his gym equipment, security, that we can't get into our own community centers. They're kicking our kids out. They spent $500,000. And I hear you guys saying, we don't have any money. You had $500,000 to give it to a for-profit when our kids pay $15 to play basketball down there. I don't understand that. And as far as the gentleman from taxation, he did tell me, and I have the letter right here. His name is Mr. Ham. He's a deputy director of the Kansas Department of Revenue and Division of Property Valuations. He is forcing, they are going to ask the UG, the city, to reapply for tax exemption from the changes being used in the center. So this is actually a unified person, a person from Topeka, that is stating that they're going to have to reapply for that taxation.
Thank you very much for coming tonight and giving us your thoughts and opinions. Now I have a question. The documents that you've brought, do you want us to have them?
Sure.
Okay.
I want you to have everything I
Can
can.
Mr. Cross, could you go around and collect the documents that Ms. Aguirre has brought
I
forward?
don't trust you, but can I go with you? To make sure I make the copies. And also, presentation. I do want to say this real quick. Thank you, Jeremy, for the presentation that came out 2 years later. This should have been presented in front of the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was important to bring this presentation forward. I will concur.
Okay.
Yes, if you don't mind, Mr. Cross will help you get a set of copies made so that we can have a set. Are there any other people here tonight that want to speak on this item? Please come forward, and you have 3 minutes, and we'd like you to speak directly into the microphone, and please tell us your name and city of residence for the record. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, my name is Faith Rivera. I am a precinct leader in Rosedale. I have been in Rosedale. I'm a third-generation Rosedalian. I am also I have a fourth generation. I am raising 2 fourth-generation Rosedalians who also use the community center. On Saturdays, early morning on Saturdays, my children would dance for DMB. I've put the pictures out to show that in these pictures on my Facebook pages, that all of the kids in these pictures are kids that danced at DMB. There was 200 children that were displaced. That's UG's definition, where I call it kicked out. The DMB was not told that they were going to be displaced. My kids were not able to dance and were displaced. Let me start there. So when you say that, Ms. Markley, when you say that the community center was empty, it was not. We were filled on Saturday during the day. We got up early on Saturday and danced. We were a community. The gym was full. We had people in and out. We couldn't even move in those hallways. So I want to say that, and I have pictures to prove that. They're also on my Facebook page. Also all the board meetings are also on my Facebook page. I go live. And about the gym, we have a gym in Rosedale. It's called Southwest Boulevard Family Fitness. It's been in since 2012. It's a non-for-profit gym. They have actually certified fitness instructors, personal instructors. There's also next door is a health center. So when they say that we needed this, we didn't. We have one. And actually it's less expensive to use. They're actually, first month is $10 for a single member, $15 for new families. They also have a great calendar telling you what you can do. And if you can't afford it, guess what? They'll subsidize you. You just bring in your W-2s. I've been there a member for quite some time. Also want to say that per the Amayo website, they only have one staff member, a facilities manager, Cesar Sanchez. No information on his credentials, but it does tell you that he can speak English or Spanish. So if you need some help there, he'll help you there. And again, like I said, certified personal trainers are at the Southwest Fitness Center. They've got Alma, Aaron, Joel, Priscilla, Shayna, and they're all certified in CPR as well. And they also have, thank you.
I appreciate that you took the time to come and be with us tonight. It looks like we don't have any other speakers on this item. Yes, sir. You'll be our final speaker on this item. If you want to come to the microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes, we would appreciate if you'd talk directly into the microphone and tell us your name and city of residence.
My name is Donovan Castaneda, and I'm with the FRB. I'm a resident in Lakewood, Comas. It's the second time I've been here, and now I understand what my Flaco Ramirez, our vice president, is the one who got me in this. I'm the treasurer, so I was not got up to time. But it makes perfect sense from a money standpoint where Parks and Recreation stands, because it makes them look good, more people. But one thing you got to understand, when you give something to the community, they don't take advantage of it unless you incentivize them some way, somehow, by programs, by costing them a little bit. That's what they're showing up more numbers. If I pay $19, I might show up and get my $19 worth, right? Well, I'm today here just to kind of figure out why they would not let us rent it to do a boxing show. We were denied, we asked, and their reasoning, and you cannot ask me that because they didn't talk to me. They talked to Marcos. Their reason is because too much traffic would put scuffs on the floor, right? It's a community center, right? It's supposed to, whatever you try to do there, it's supposed to benefit the community. Now, you guys know this area better than I do, right? You understand the balance of kids don't having good family structure. That's where all the kids that acting bad in juvenile hall or acting, that's where I come. I'm one of those kids. I'm a grown man now, all right? But I'm one of those kids. And all we want is significance. All we want is to be heard, to be cared, maybe to be loved, right? Where out of all the sports, boxing is one of those few sports that gives you significance that your family, your peers, more likely they're not aware that you need it. So what's better for the community in a boxing show and a discipline than that? All we want to do is have the ability to rent the gymnasium, put out a good show. USA Boxing can vouch for us. We put the best boxing shows in the metro area, and that's all I got. Just let me rent the community center for the community.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that you came out and took the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you, guys.
We have one last item on our public agenda for Public Works and Safety, and that is we have Ms. Mank here making a public comment, and her request is Clam Park and Quindaro Park tennis courts. And Ms. Mank, you have up to 5 minutes, and if you would please speak directly into the microphone. And
hi, Ms. Bynum, and hi, Mr.
Good
Johnson.
Evening. You have 5 minutes.
My name is Tasir Mank, and I live in Wyandotte County off of 38th Street. Ms. Bynum and Mr. Johnson, I actually put this in place long before our meeting tomorrow, and I look forward to that still. My son is graduating in 20 minutes, so I'm going to be quick with mine, but I'm going to this is Robert Harrison, so I'm going to let him kind of finish up where I left off. But I wanted to start by saying I remember when we were at BPU, Ms. Bynum, and you told me that Mr. Rogers said that tennis was not a popular sport. Well, he is the head coach of Sumner's tennis team, and this is just the 50 girls that signed up. This is not even the boys. So it's not a matter of it's not a matter that it's not popular. It's a matter that we don't have the opportunity to play the sport. We don't have anywhere to play it at other than way out at Eisenhower. The kids down here don't have a tennis court to use. Also, I had a thing written out, but I'm going to let him go ahead and kind of take over.
So I want to thank you for coming and waiting, and we will turn the balance of your time over to the gentleman, and we want to wish a very happy graduation to your son.
Thank you.
Okay, sir, tell us your name, please.
My name is Robert Harrison. I'm a lifelong resident of Kansas City, Kansas. And I'm here to kind of echo what she said and also what the gentleman before me came up and spoke about. I started playing tennis years ago. I never played before in my life, hated it, played baseball on the tennis courts. One day I was going through the channels and I happened to see Arthur Ashe on television. He was about 38 years old. Nobody expected him to win. He was playing against Jimmy Connors, #1 seed. Somehow or another, Arthur Ashe won that tournament, Wimbledon. I went out and bought a racket that day, and I've been playing ever since. So I started teaching my son, and I'd work with him up at Wyandotte High School, and a gentleman and his wife and dog would walk past us each day. And finally, he asked me, do you teach tennis? First I said no, but even though I was teaching my son each day, and he was getting very good. And then he asked me the second time, and I said, well, yeah. And the gentleman's name was Bert Cabin. Anybody know him there? Bert used to be head of, director of Parks and Recreation. So he hired me to teach tennis. And I started teaching, and at the Clam Park, 27th, right off of Cleveland or something like that. And we had the thing going. We were able to give tournaments and everything like that, and it was growing. I'd gone to a USTA meeting in Dallas, and they told me about the Arthur Ashe, Nick Bollettieri Cities program. And I said, we have to have this in Kansas City. So I came back. They said the criteria was you couldn't have a program already in place, which we did not. So anyway, Mayor Steiniger was our mayor in Kansas City, Kansas. Mayor Emmanuel Cleaver in Kansas City, Missouri. I got both of them to come together, and we generated a lot of enthusiasm, but it wasn't quite enough to get it done. So I told the people, I had met them at the Ashe Bollettieri camp. I had spoken with them. I said, if we could get Arthur Ashe to come to Kansas City, I think we could get this done. Lo and behold, about a week later, Arthur Ashe came to Kansas City, came to Clam Park, this park that we're trying to save and fix back up. And the thing about Clam Park, it's right in the inner city. And there's a lot of disadvantaged kids that don't have the opportunity to play tennis. They don't have $80 an hour for lessons. So we would be able to give them lessons at a very inexpensive cost. I went by Clam, and like I say, it's there. The kids are ready to play. We're trying to really promote it on the elementary school level. I look at the news, and I see all these horrible things that are happening. A lot of that is because the kids don't have activities to do. Tennis is a lifetime sport. You don't, unlike football, basketball, which I loved playing growing up, but you know, you won't play football at 65, 70 years old like me, you know. So it's just a win-win situation. I'm not sure exactly what it would cost to fix up Clam. I'm going to do that research, but it's very, very needed. It can eliminate a problem. If you save one child, it's worth it.
Sir.
You can save many.
Thank you so much. I believe your time is up, but don't step away just yet. I have 2 questions that I want to make sure I understand.
Okay, go ahead.
When Ms. Mank had been emailing, I think both Commissioner Johnson and myself, I did ask her if she had to pick one, which one was her choice, and I think she did say Clam. Do you know if I'm right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Between Parkwood and Clam?
Yes, definitely. Clam has 6 courts.
Okay,
Parkwood has
and then did I understand her to introduce you as Sumner Academy's tennis coach?
Yes.
And you have 50 students signed up right now that would like to be on the tennis team?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
She took, I had
That's okay.
copies of all that.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly.
And that wasn't even including the boys.
Oh, that was the young ladies. Yes. Okay. Well, we will, I don't know if you're joining us in the morning, Commissioner Johnson and I and Mr. Rogers and Mr. Webb, we have a meeting in the morning.
What time is that?
I think 9:30.
I'm available.
Okay, well, we'll be here meeting with Ms. Mank on the 9th floor.
Okay.
So just join the meeting, and thank you so much.
All right,
for
thank
taking the
you.
time to come tonight. And that is everything on this agenda for tonight, and we will transition over to our Administration and Human Services Standing Committee.
Thank you. All right. I will now call this meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee It has your name on it. We want to welcome everyone to this meeting. Public comment is welcome on items in the standing committee agenda. Again, 3 minutes to state your comments, and please use your microphones, everyone. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Philbrook.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Here. Bynum.
Here.
Markley.
Here. Our first order of business are minutes from February 25th and March 18th. Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those minutes have been approved. We have one item under the committee agenda, which is the reappointment for Reach Foundation Board, and Emmerich Cross is here to present this item. Somewhere. There he is. You moved on me.
This is the reappointment of Teresa Reyes Cummings to the Reach Healthcare Foundation Community Advisory Committee. It's a 3-year term from June 1st to May 31st of 2022.
Move for approval.
Second.
Roll call on this item.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Bynum.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye, and I do in my other life, my business that I work for is neighbors with the Reach Foundation. They do great work, so I'm glad to have that appointment on the board representing us. We do have public agenda items also tonight. We have 2 items under the public agenda. Our first item is Chris Morrow requesting to propose a penalty reduction for simple marijuana possession. Mr. Morrow, please come to the podium to make your presentation. We ask that your comments be as concise as possible. You'll be allowed up to 5 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you very much. I've got handouts for the commissioners, but I'd like to hand those out after the comments are done.
Okay.
So, good evening, commissioners, and everyone else still in attendance. My name is Chris Morrow, and I'm with Kansas Normal, and I'm going to begin my remarks with a quote from Victor Hugo. "Nothing in the world is so powerful as an idea whose time has come." And that said, I'm here to talk about proposing a penalty reduction for marijuana possession in Kansas City, Kansas. And I'm talking fast because I've got 5 minutes. And I want to begin with the who, what, when, where, and why. First, who is it for? Well, it's for your residents and visitors to Kansas City, Kansas. Who can make the change? Well, the commissioners here in attendance and your fellow members of the governing body can, or a sufficient number of registered voters petitioning for an ordinance change by ballot initiative. So what type of changes are we proposing? Simply put, the enactment of an ordinance to memorialize marijuana possession penalties that, among other things, does not include arrest or incarceration, specifies a citation and $25 fine, and keeps other associated costs reasonable. When would this happen? As soon as possible, if the commissioners of the unified government are willing to do so, or as part of the November 5th election, if voters must petition for an ordinance change. Where? Obviously, here in Kansas City, Kansas. Why? Because the current penalties can be onerous, including fines of up to $1,000, incarceration of up to 6 months, and other expenses. Kansas City, Kansas has a 22% poverty rate, and that means oftentimes these costs and penalties fall on people who can least afford them. Why else? Because people of color are 3 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession, and in Kansas City, Kansas, only 39% of the population identifies as white, non-Hispanic. Why else? Because marijuana reform is on an inexorable march to legalization nationwide. Kansas Normal wants our state to move forward with reform soon. Does the governing body want to take progressive action or continue to be passed by? Time will tell. That said, this is what a march to legalization looks like. Marijuana has been legalized in Colorado and the District of Columbia and 9 other states. Missouri and Nebraska and 13 other states have decriminalized but not legalized marijuana. And marijuana is legal for medical purposes in 33 states, including neighboring states of Colorado, Oklahoma, Missouri, and a medical marijuana bill is currently being worked in the Nebraska legislature. And if they pass that bill, Kansas will be surrounded by states that have reformed their marijuana laws. In 2015, voters in Wichita approved a marijuana possession penalty ordinance initiative with 54% of the vote. Now, that ordinance was overturned by the Kansas Supreme Court, albeit on a technicality. Subsequently, the Wichita City Council took the matter into their own hands and approved the current ordinance in June of 2017. In Kansas City, Missouri, as part of the April 2017 election, a marijuana possession penalty ordinance initiative was passed with 75% of the vote. That's 21% greater than Wichita, only a mere 2 years later. In all, marijuana possession penalty reductions have now been instituted in Lawrence as well as Wichita and Kansas City, Missouri. This applies to marijuana amounts between 32 and 35 grams, a little bit more than an ounce.
1 minute remaining.
Fines ranging by city from $1 to $50. Incarceration is not part of any of the penalties. Arrest is not stipulated in any of the ordinances. In Wichita, depending on the circumstances, suspects may not be detained or taken into custody except to issue a citation. Also in Wichita, marijuana paraphernalia is included at the reduced penalty. In Lawrence, the requirement for a costly drug abuse evaluation was also eliminated for first-time offenders and optional for second offenses. In addition, in Kansas, in the fall 2018 Kansas Speaks survey from the Docking Institute at Fort Hays State, a majority of Kansans were finally polled as being in favor of legalization. Recently, national polling shows Americans support marijuana legalization at all-time high levels, 60+%, and spanning all demographic groups and political parties. And I have examples for you in a handout that I mentioned earlier. Thankfully, Kansas cities enjoy home rule powers by virtue of our state constitution. That means
Mr. Morrow,
commissioners.
your time has expired. How much do you have left?
30 seconds.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thankfully, Kansas cities enjoy home rule powers by virtue of our state constitution, and that means your commission can move your community in the right direction on marijuana reform if you're willing. And if you're unwilling, you have residents that are willing and motivated to gather the necessary petition signatures to place the issue on the ballot in November, just like Wichita and Kansas City, Missouri have done successfully very recently. That ends my remarks, and I'd like to.
If you'd like to give those to our Sergeant at Arms, and perhaps you could give them to Commissioner Kane, and we can do the
And I would be
elementary school
glad to
take and
stand
pass.
for questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much for being here tonight. We have one more item on our public agenda. Our last item this evening is Dave Heaston to discuss a policy in which first responders are aware of one's wishes in the event of their death. Please, if I didn't say your name correctly, please restate it and restate your city of residence, and you'll have 5 minutes to make a presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Dave Heaston. I live on Strawberry Hill, and I have a little bit of a problem. I've been on the donation list for my body to go to K. My wife and I were on the list for like 14 years. She's since passed, and she was at an out-of-state nursing home, so it didn't happen. But I have nobody in town to take care of me. I have no relation here. Yes, I got a lot of friends, but nobody checks on me every day. And my problem is I've had this set up to donate my body, but nobody knows how to do it. You know, I've been working with my Brian, my councilman, for the last better than a year. We were talked about putting like realtor locks on the door to where the police could get in and you could put your information on the inside. That didn't fly. I guess there's a bunch of security things out there that you can buy pretty reasonable, but the problem is the key costs $5,000. I guess there's only one fire truck in the whole county that's got that key. And the thing is I got to talking to people, and I asked them, well, what can I do to make my wishes aware? Because I've been paying taxes here for better than 35 years. This is what they give me. I mean, unless you own a Harvey farm for your grandkids, this is horse and buggy. We've had computers for better than 40 years. We've had smartphones for 30 years. Now, if I was a perpetrator or a felon that had a gun, the police would know it the minute they walked in my door. Or if it was a violent situation, if I had domestic violence, or if I was a pedophile, they know it. But they can't put anything in the file for good guys. You know, all I'm looking for, my daughter lives 600 miles away, and I don't want her to have a worry. I'm at peace with myself when I pass. She's also. So I don't want to have her a worry in the world. I've lined up to where the people that have the contract with KU can take me there, and if KU wouldn't accept me, they also do cremation. So Julie's problem solved. I got 2 dogs, and my dogs were like my wife. I was married for 52 years. My dogs were like my wife. My wife made me laugh. My dogs make me laugh. So we just had somebody at the Humane Shelter here saying, you know what, you go in the kennels. That I have a person that her and her dad own the LA Hardware behind the McDonald's down on Kansas Avenue. Very good friend of mine, and she's babysitting my dog. She said, call any day of the night or day. She'll come get my dogs, at least till Julie gets here. I've got a friend that he's been a deacon in a Baptist church. Black guy for 25 years. I trust him. He knows where all of my valuables are in the house. I want him to be able to get into my house and get my valuables before it might be subject to looting or whatever. And then to turn all of them, he's known my daughter for 25 years. My point is I'd like to see him expand. Since I put in this application to talk, I found out through Major Rodney Smith, who's a head homicide. I think he must have been given a reel of red tape one day and a barrel to crawl in, because why would the guy from homicide call me about this? And after we talked about it for about 15 minutes, you know what he said? He said, that's such a good idea, I want to steal it from you. Which to me, that makes sense. I said, take it. I've been trying for a year to get something done. I haven't got anything done. You can get it done with a couple memos, probably. And I know my councilman, Brian, is totally behind this situation. He's tired of hearing from me about it. And he said it ought to happen. It could be so happen. All I'm looking for is 4 phone numbers. My daughter that's out of state, person to take care of my dog, the person that's going to get me to KU, and Clint, my friend, that's going to secure my house valuables. To me, they said, well, who's going to do it? Well, you get cadets in there. If you're a good typist, you could probably put all that information in probably within less than a minute or 2 minutes. I mean, we're talking about 4 numbers, 4 names, and a little lash on their name right behind it.
Mr. Houston, your time is up. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Okay. Any questions? I mean, it seemed, why is it taking so long to maybe get something done about it?
Thank you.
Because again, this is horse and buggy. Why would I want to put that in my freezer?
Thanks. All right, that was our last item this evening. Thank you all for your extended attention, and we are adjourned.